Hey guys, tonight we are going to travel back to a time when the simple act of going to sleep was a surprisingly upright affair. Imagine your bedroom, but the year is 1350. The sun has long since vanished, and the world outside your window isn't twinkling with city lights, but shrouded in an ink-black primal darkness. Forget your memory foam mattress. Your survival tonight depends on a pile of straw and a healthy fear of demons. The darkness isn't total. For you, the debate is academic. All you know is that the bell means the day as labor is over and the night as dangers are just beginning. Your world has shrunk to the four walls of this smoky, drafty little box. It's time to prepare for sleep. You don't change into pajamas. You don't have any. You don't brush your teeth. You simply shed the outermost, filthiest layer of your daily clothes and get ready to climb into the place where you'll all spend the next several hours. It's not a retreat or a sanctuary. It's a necessity. And as you turn towards the corner of the room, your eyes finally fix on it, the bed. The banked fire offers a dim orange pulse, and a sliver of moonlight might push through a gap in the roof thatch, painting a ghostly stripe on the far wall. The air is thick with the day's lingering smells. Wood smoke, boiled cabbage, sweat, and the faint, ever-present aroma of unwashed bodies. You don't notice it, of course. This is just the smell of home. The silence, too, is different from modern silence. It's deeper, punctuated by the sighing of the wind around the eaves, the distant howl of a dog, and the soft rustling of mice in the thatch above you. They are your roommates, a constant, unseen presence. You've named the boldest one, Bartholomew, mostly so you have someone to curse at when he gets into the grain. Honestly, you probably won't survive this, at least not without a newfound appreciation for central heating. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Let me know in the comments where you're re-listening from and what time it is for you. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. The day is done. You know this not by the clock on the wall, because there isn't one, but by the distant, rhythmic tolling of a bell from the local church. This is the curfew, the curfew bell, a signal that ripples across the landscape, telling every household it's time to cover the fire. The single shuttered window, covered with a piece of waxed linen or perhaps just a wooden plank, does little to stop the chill. You can feel a persistent draft snaking its way across the dirt floor, carrying with it the damp, earthy smell of the ground beneath your feet and a fainter, sharper scent of animal dung from just outside the door. This is your home. It's not much, but it's yours. The walls are a lattice of woven sticks, packed with a mixture of mud, straw, and yes, animal manure. This isn't just a quirky tidbit of medieval construction. It was a genuine, all-purpose insulation and building material. You've spent many an autumn afternoon patching the cracks with a fresh batch of this fragrant plaster, trying to fend off the coming winter winds. It's a bit like living inside a very rustic and slightly less waterproof flower pot. It's a crucial, non-negotiable part of your evening ritual. An untended ember could easily devour your small wattle and daub house, and then your neighbors, and then the whole village. You dutifully shuffle over to the central hearth, the single source of heat and light in your one-room home, and carefully bank the coals with ash, smothering the flames until only a faint, sleepy glow remains. With the fire tamed, a profound darkness floods the room, and a deeper cold immediately begins to seep in. You stand for a moment, letting your eyes adjust. Historians still argue whether the curfew is purely for fire prevention or also a tool for social control, to keep the populace off the streets after dark and tucked away in their homes. It stands in the coldest corner of the room, a squat wooden frame that you probably built yourself. There are no graceful curves or polished finishes here. This is a piece of survival furniture. The wood is rough, pocked with splinters, and held together with simple creaking joints. You run a hand over the headboard, a single solid plank of oak, and feel the familiar grain under your calloused fingers. Instead of slats or a box spring, a lattice of thick rope is woven through holes drilled into the frame, creating a coarse, sagging net. While you use straw, others might stuff their sacks with anything from dried leaves and bracken to old rags, wool scraps, or even pea shucks. It was a testament to human ingenuity and the universal desire for even a sliver of comfort. You, however, are lucky enough to have straw. You've heard stories of people so poor they simply sleep on a pile of loose straw on the dirt floor, a thought that makes your lumpy bed feel for a moment like the height of opulence. This is the foundation of your comfort, and as you put your weight on the edge of the bed, the ropes groan in protest, a sound as familiar to you as your own breathing. You have one, perhaps two, heavy woolen blankets. They are undyed, the color of a greasy sheep, and the texture is just as rustic. The wool is coarse and scratchy against your skin, but it is incredibly warm, trapping your body heat against the relentless chill of the night. If you're a bit more prosperous, you might have a single, coarse linen sheet, which feels impossibly smooth by comparison. But it's a luxury many of your neighbors do without. You smooth the blanket down, feeling the familiar geography of the mattress beneath. This is it. This is your sanctuary for the night. You sit on the edge, the ropes creaking, the straw rustling, and contemplate the task ahead. It's not as simple as just lying down and closing your eyes. No, that would be far too easy. You have to arrange yourself, to build your nest for the night. On top of this rope suspension sits your mattress. The very word mattress feels a bit ambitious for what is essentially a large canvas sack, or palliasse. It's stuffed to bursting with straw. Not soft, fluffy, golden straw from a picturesque farm, but prickly, dusty straw that rustles and crackles with every movement. It's a lumpy landscape of hills and valleys that you know intimately. You know which lumps to avoid, where the straw has compacted into a near-solid mass, and where a stray thistle might be waiting to give you a sharp goodnight kiss. It's about as comfortable as lying on a bag of uncooked spaghetti. Every few months, you have to perform the grand chore of unstuffing the whole thing, taking the sack outside to be beaten free of dust and vermin, and then refilling it with fresh straw from the harvest, a task that leaves you itchy and sneezing for days. To combat the less pleasant aspects of your bedding, you've mixed in handfuls of dried herbs. This is your small, personal luxury. Dried lavender, chamomile, and especially meadowsweet are tucked in with the straw. It's a quirky but common practice, a medieval attempt at a Glade plug-in. The idea is that the fragrant herbs will repel fleas and mask the other, more pungent, odors of the mattress. As you press down, a faint, dry herbal scent rises, a ghostly whisper of summer meadows fighting a losing battle against the dominant notes of dust and mildew. Bartholomew and his extended family of mice, of course, see your mattress less as a bed and more as a combination pantry and luxury apartment complex. Historians and archaeologists still debate the exact composition of the common person's mattress, as it varied so wildly by region and what one could afford, or simply find. Your bedding is just as simple. There's no top sheet, no fluffy duvet. You don't just lie down. That would be like trying to sleep on a slide. First, you must construct your nightly throne. You turn your attention to the head of the bed, where a collection of pillows lies in a jumble against the hard wooden headboard. The most important of these is the bolster. This isn't a pillow in the soft, fluffy, modern sense. This is a long, firm, densely packed cylinder of fabric, almost the full width of the bed. Your lower back presses against the base of the pillow pile. Your head is tilted slightly forward, supported by the topmost pillow. The position feels entirely normal to you. You've slept this way your entire life. In fact, the very idea of lying down flat, completely horizontal, seems bizarre and faintly unsettling. Why would anyone do that? You take a slow, deep breath. The initial construction is over. Now begins the long, cold wait for sleep, propped up like a king on a lumpy, straw-filled throne, ready to face the night. The air around your exposed head feels noticeably colder than the air trapped by the blanket around your body. And that, you'll soon find, is entirely the point. Your shoulders and head are elevated high above the rest of your body, propped up almost as if you were reading in bed. If, of course, you could read, and if you had a candle to spare for such a luxury, which you absolutely do not. Your legs are stretched out flat beneath the heavy wool blanket, pointing downhill. It's a strange hybrid posture, neither sitting nor lying. One quirky but practical belief is that different pillow fillings could affect your sleep. A small pillow stuffed with dried hops, for instance, was thought to promote a deeper, more peaceful rest, its bitter, earthy scent, lulling you into drowsiness. You don't have one, but you've heard the tales. It's less a comfort item and more a piece of structural engineering. You grab it with both hands, it's surprisingly heavy, and wrestle it into position, propping it firmly against the headboard. It lands with a satisfying, muffled thump, a solid foundation for the night. This bolster is the cornerstone of your sleep. Its purpose is purely functional, to hold your torso upright. It might be stuffed with tightly packed wool, horsehair, or, for the truly fortunate, a wealth of goose feathers, but the goal is always firmness. It has all the gentle give of a rolled-up yoga mat. On top of this foundational sausage-shaped pillow, you begin to arrange the others. You have 2, maybe 3, smaller, squarer pillows. These are a bit more forgiving, a concession to comfort. You stack them strategically on top of the bolster, creating a ramp, a steep incline against which you will rest. It takes a minute of careful arranging, patting, and propping to get the angle just right. Building your sleeping nest is a nightly piece of architecture. Historians still argue whether this was a true, bolt-upright, 90-degree sitting posture, or more of a gentle 45-degree recline. The truth for you is somewhere in between. It depends on the number of pillows you own and the height of your headboard. Tonight, you've created a fairly steep slope. Once arranged, your pillow pile looks less like an invitation to dreamy slumber, and more like the command seat of a very rustic spaceship. You then perform the final, crucial maneuver. You don't slide under the woolen blanket. Instead, you sit on the edge of the bed, swing your legs in, and then carefully, deliberately, back yourself up into the pillow fortress you've just constructed. You settle into the position, your body adjusting to the familiar arrangement. Finally, you are settled. The heavy blanket is pulled up to your chin. Your arms rest at your sides. And that, you'll soon find, is entirely the point. The air around your exposed head feels noticeably colder because it is colder. You are propped up in a desperate nightly battle against physics. Your one-room home, a charming blend of mud and sticks, is about as airtight as a wicker basket. Before banking the fire, you placed a smooth, fist-sized stone at the edge of the hearth. Now you retrieve it. It's not glowing hot, but it holds a deep, satisfying warmth. You carefully wrap the stone in a spare scrap of linen, a crucial step, as a bare stone could easily scorch your blanket or your skin, and slide it down to the foot of your bed. This is your bedstone, a low-tech hot water bottle. It's a personal, portable pocket of warmth, a tiny victory against the overwhelming cold. It's a lovely comfort, so long as you don't accidentally kick it in your sleep and break a toe. A very real medieval workplace injury, if your workplace is the business of staying alive through the night. Cold air, you understand instinctively, is a physical presence. It's heavy, damp, and it pools on the floor like a malevolent fog. And damp, or if it was more deeply rooted in the medical and spiritual beliefs of the time. Was this posture a practical adaptation that was later justified by complex theories? Or did the theories themselves dictate the posture? The evidence is tangled, with strong arguments on both sides. For you, the answer is simple. It works. You feel warmer this way. You believe it keeps the sickness out of your chest. The cold is a tangible enemy, and you are fighting it with the best weapons you have, a pile of pillows and a warm rock. But as you lie there, listening to the wind moan outside, you know the cold isn't the only thing you have to worry about. Other things thrive in the damp and the dark, and some of them want to share your bed. You can feel a persistent draft, a sliver of the winter night itself, sneaking under the door and gliding across the dirt floor. This draft doesn't just give you a chill. It carries the dampness of the earth, the smell of wet leaves, and the kind of deep, penetrating cold that seems to settle in your bones. By elevating your torso and head, you are performing a simple act of atmospheric stratification. You've lifted your precious head, and more importantly, your vulnerable lungs, out of the coldest, dampest, and most stagnant layer of air in the room. The weather has been growing colder and wetter for decades. Summers are cooler and shorter, and the winters are brutal and long. The Great Famine a few decades ago was a terrifying memory passed down from your parents, a time of relentless rain, ruined crops, and widespread starvation. This pervasive cold makes everything harder. It makes the mud outside your door a permanent feature. It makes your joints ache, and it makes the night a genuine threat. This isn't just about comfort. It's about health. A persistent cough, what you call a catarrh, could easily turn into something worse in this damp chill, and your upright posture is your first line of defense, keeping your airways clearer and hopefully drier. Your feet, tucked away at the bottom of the bed under a thick woolen blanket, are in the cheap seats. But your head is enjoying the relative warmth of the upper level. It's a simple, brilliant solution to a problem you face every single night. The medieval version of setting the thermostat wasn't a dial on the wall. It was adding another pillow to the pile, or pulling your woolen cap down a little further over your ears. You're living in what climate historians now call the Little Ice Age. To supplement this postural defense, you have another small trick. Historians still argue whether the primary driver for this near-universal sleeping posture was purely environmental, like this fight against the cold. Other things thrive in the damp and the dark, and some of them want to share your bed. As you settle into your upright nest, you hear it. A faint, frantic rustling from deep within your mattress. You might spend a sunny afternoon with a neighbor, meticulously picking the creatures and their nits from each other's hair. By propping your head and shoulders high above the mattress, you're creating distance. You're elevating your face, your ears, and crucially, your hair, away from the bustling metropolis of vermin in the straw below. When you're lying flat, your head is right there on the front lines, a warm, inviting target in the heart of flea and bedbug territory. Sitting up, however, turns your body into a mountain. For a flea to get to your scalp, it has to launch a full-scale mountaineering expedition. It's not impossible, but it's a deterrent. You're making them work for it. It's not seen as a sign of being particularly dirty. It's just a necessary chore, like mending a sock or sharpening a knife. Sleep isn't an escape from the physical world. It's a continuation of its small miseries. The cold, the damp, the constant, maddening itch, they are all part of the texture of the night. You shift your weight, the straw crackles, the ropes groan. You are propped up, a lonely sentinel in the dark, defending your personal space from enemies both microscopic and mouse-sized. The battle is constant, and it's a war you can never truly win. You can only hope for a temporary ceasefire. But these physical discomforts, as irritating as they are, pale in comparison to the invisible dangers you believe are swirling in the very air you breathe, dangers that your posture is also designed to combat. The wealthy have their own battles. A quirky tidbit from the upper crust is the fleefer, a small pelt of a stoat or marten worn over the shoulders. The theory was that the fleas, being discerning little connoisseurs of comfort, would prefer the soft animal fur to the lady's own skin. You don't have a spare marten lying around, so you just make do with a nightly routine of scratching that could almost be considered a form of exercise. It's not the sound of you shifting. It's the sound of Bartholomew and his extended family. The mice who co-own your home find your straw-stuffed bed to be an ideal living situation, a pre-built housing development that also happens to be an all-you-can-eat grain buffet. You give the mattress a good, solid thump with your elbow, and the rustling subsides for a moment. It's a temporary truce, and you both know it. At least the mice are mostly interested in the straw. The other residents are interested in you. You feel a familiar, faint tickle on your leg. You ignore it. Then another on your arm. You twitch, your hand instinctively moving to scratch, but you try to resist. This is the nightly dance with the fleas. They are your constant companions, a loyal legion of unpaying tenants with a surprisingly sharp, biting sense of humor. They live in the straw, in the wool of your blanket, in the seams of your tunic. They are a simple, unavoidable fact of life. Your herbal mattress stuffing, that fragrant mix of meadowsweet and lavender, is your best attempt at repelling them, but it's a fragrant failure. Historians still argue whether the various herbal remedies stuffed into mattresses were genuinely effective repellents or merely a psychological comfort against an unstoppable tide of pests. Judging by the fresh itch on your neck, you're voting for psychological comfort. Lice are another matter, more intimate and even harder to evict. They live in your hair and on your body. Delousing is a common social activity, like gossiping. And here, your upright sleeping posture offers another subtle but crucial advantage. You feel a sharp bite on your ankle and slap at it through the wool, a small, futile act of violence in the dark. But these physical discomforts, as irritating as they are, pale in comparison to the invisible dangers you believe are swirling in the very air you breathe. Dangers that your posture is also designed to combat. To understand why you are propped up like this, you have to understand how you see your own body. Each one is linked to a season, an element, and a specific quality. Blood, hot and moist like spring air, makes you cheerful and optimistic or sanguine. Physicians of the time treated extreme infatuation as a legitimate medical condition, a dangerous overheating and drying of the body caused by an excess of yellow and black bile. Did you, the common villager, think in terms of specific biles and phlegs, or was it a more general folk understanding of hot, cold, wet, and dry states? The truth is likely a blend. You might not be quoting classical texts, but you absolutely know that you need to avoid cold foods in the winter, and that a fever is a sign of excess heat that needs to be cooled. It's practical medicine, woven into the fabric of your daily life. And this profound belief system, this invisible world of internal liquids, doesn't just stop when you go to bed. In fact, the night is when you are most vulnerable, and the position you sleep in is one of your most important tools for maintaining that fragile, precious balance. The cure? A prescription of moistening foods, cool baths, and sometimes, if the object of affection was deemed suitable, a recommendation for marriage to restore humoral balance. So if you're ever feeling a bit down, you might eat a moist food like fish or cucumber to counteract your melancholic black bile. It's a complete, all-encompassing system for understanding the human body, and it dictates nearly every choice you make about your health. Phlegm, cold and moist like winter water, makes you calm and unemotional or phlegmatic. Yellow bile, hot and dry like summer fire, makes you ambitious and aggressive or choleric. And black bile, cold and dry like autumn earth, makes you thoughtful and melancholic. A healthy person is someone in whom these four humors are perfectly balanced. All sickness, from a simple cold to the terrifying pestilence, is caused by an imbalance, an excess or a deficiency of one of these vital fluids. It's not a machine of cells and organs, but a delicate, temperamental vessel filled with four vital liquids. You feel it in your own body. When you have a cold and your nose runs, it's a clear sign of excess phlegm. When you are angry and your face flushes, that's a surge of hot yellow bile. The goal of medicine and of a healthy life is to keep these humors in harmony. Your diet, your activity, the very air you breathe, everything influences your personal humoral constitution. You might be naturally more phlegmatic, while your spouse is decidedly choleric, which explains a lot about your domestic disagreements. It's the medieval equivalent of checking your horoscope, but with far more serious life or death consequences. This is the ancient wisdom, passed down from the Greeks and Romans, and it is the absolute foundation of all medical thought. It's called humoral theory, and to you, it's not a theory at all. It's a fact. These four liquids, or humors, are blood, phlegm, yellow bile, and black bile. You don't need a doctor to tell you this. It's common knowledge, as obvious as the fact that the sun rises in the east. A quirky but widespread application of this theory was in the diagnosis of lovesickness. Historians still argue about the extent to which the average peasant understood the intricate details of humoralism as laid out by learned physicians like Galen. The night is when you are most vulnerable, and the position you sleep in is one of your most important tools for maintaining that fragile, precious balance. You understand that sleeping is a bit like cooking. During the day, your body is active, its internal heat stirring and mixing the four humors, keeping them properly blended. But at night, during the cold, passive state of sleep, this internal cooking process slows down. The humors are at risk of settling, separating, and falling out of balance. This is where your upright posture becomes a critical piece of medical equipment. By sitting up, you are using gravity to your advantage. You imagine your torso as a vessel, and you want to keep its contents stable. The most immediate concern is your stomach. Digestion, in your humoral understanding, is the first stage of cooking the food you've eaten to transform it into usable humors. If you lie down flat after a meal, the stomach is in the wrong position. The food will sit poorly, the digestive. Fires won't work efficiently, and you risk producing impure, imbalanced humors that will then travel through your body and cause mischief. Propping yourself up keeps your stomach in its proper, upright orientation, allowing for a gentle, effective simmer all night long. It's a bit like you wouldn't lay a cooking pot on its side and expect it to work. You are, in essence, marinating yourself correctly. But the real danger, the one that truly concerns you, involves your head. The brain, according to humoral theory, is the body's source of phlegm, the cold, moist humor. It naturally produces this watery substance. When you are upright, this phlegm can drain harmlessly downwards, away from the vital organs of the head. But if you were to lie flat, a terrifying scenario unfolds. Gravity would no longer be on your side. Phlegm could pool in your head, or worse, drain incorrectly. Instead of going down, it could flow into your chest, flooding your heart and lungs with a cold, wet humor. This, you believe, is a direct route to sickness. A defluxion, or catarrh, of this kind of flow of phlegm in the wrong direction is the root cause of coughs, breathing problems, and a host of other ailments. That slight congestion you feel in the morning, that's proof the system is working, but it's also a warning of what could happen if it were to go wrong. A particularly quirky but serious belief connected to this was the danger of apoplexy, or what we would now call a stroke. Physicians believed that lying flat could cause the humors to rush to the head with great force, leading to a sudden, catastrophic imbalance that could strike you down in your sleep. Sleeping upright was seen as a preventative measure, a way to keep the body's internal traffic flowing in an orderly downward direction. It wasn't just about comfort. It was about preventing spontaneous death in the night. This fear was very real and pervasive. Historians still argue whether this medical Reasoning was the primary cause for the sleeping posture, or a sophisticated justification for a practice that already existed for other reasons, like staying warm and avoiding vermin. Was the science built to fit the bed, or was the bed built to fit the science? It's a classic chicken and egg debate. From your perspective, it's all one seamless truth. You sit up to stay warm, to keep the mice away from your face, and to prevent your humors from going haywire. The reasons are intertwined, each one reinforcing the others. They form a powerful, cohesive logic that dictates the only sensible way to spend the night. As you sit there, propped against your pillows, you feel a sense of security. You are in the correct, medically sound position. You are doing everything in your power to keep your internal furnace burning steadily and your vital fluids in their proper place. You are doing everything in your power to keep your internal furnace burning steadily and your vital fluids in their proper place. But this sense of control is a fragile thing, a thin woolen blanket against a storm of potential calamities. The night, you believe, is not just a time for rest. It is a time of profound vulnerability when the body's defenses are at their lowest. Lying down flat would be actively inviting disaster to tea. One of your greatest fears is simply the air itself. You know that sickness can be carried on the wind in what the learned men call a miasma. This is a foul, invisible vapor that rises from stagnant water, rotting refuse, and freshly dug earth. It's a pestilential breath that can infiltrate a house and a body, causing corruption and disease. By sleeping propped up, you keep your head elevated, away from the floor where this heavy, malevolent air is thickest. But the more immediate terror isn't what might drift in from outside. It's the betrayal that can come from within your own body. You've heard the stories, whispered in the village after a sudden death. A man, healthy and strong, goes to his bed and is found in the morning, stiff and cold, his face frozen in a silent gasp. The cause? Apoplexy. A violent, instantaneous rebellion of his own humors. You picture it as a kind of internal tidal wave. If you were to lie flat, the blood, the hot, forceful humor, could rush to your head with unchecked power, overwhelming the cool, delicate tissues of the brain. It would be a fatal storm, a sudden snuffing of the candle of your life. Sitting up is your dam against this flood, a way of ensuring the body's energetic rivers flow downstream as nature intended. Even if you escape that sudden, dramatic end, there's a slower, quieter danger. Remember that phlegm, the cold, wet humor produced by your brain? Lying flat is a direct invitation for it to take a wrong turn. Instead of draining harmlessly, it could trickle down into your chest, pooling in your lungs. You can almost feel the sensation, a slow, gurgling filling up, a drowning from the inside out. Every time you hear a neighbor, a hacking, wet cough in the dead of night, it's a terrifying reminder of what happens when the humors go wandering. Your upright posture is your best defense, keeping your airways clear and tilted safely downward. It's less about a good night's sleep and more about making sure you wake up at all dot, and the specifics of your position matter immensely. A quirky but deadly serious piece of folk wisdom, known to everyone, is to avoid sleeping on your left side. Your heart, the very furnace of your body's heat and life force, resides on the left. To lie upon it is to risk smothering it, compressing it, or allowing cold humors to gather and chill it. A chilled heart is a dead heart. The right side is considered safer, but even that is a risk. Right side for a bit of a rest, left side for, well, let's just call it a permanent rest. Historians still debate how deeply the complex, Latin-laced theories of the physicians penetrated the consciousness of the common person. Did you truly worry about the precise balance of your black bile? Or was it a more instinctual, inherited fear, a simple, powerful belief that lying down was the posture of the gravely ill and the soon-to-be dead? For you, the distinction is meaningless. Lying flat is wrong. It feels wrong. It courts sickness. It is an act of profound recklessness. And that feeling goes deeper than just a fear of your phlegm going astray. It touches upon a different kind of fear, one that concerns not just your body, but your soul. And that feeling goes deeper than just a fear of your phlegm going astray. It touches upon a different kind of fear, one that concerns not just your body, but your soul. The darkness that presses in on your small home is not empty. You believe, with every fiber of your being, that the night belongs to a different master. When the sun sets, the world is ceded to the devil and his legions. The wind whistling through the thatch isn't just wind. It could be the whisper of a tempting demon. The scuttling of a mouse isn't just a mouse. It could be a malevolent spirit in disguise. The night is a time of spiritual warfare, and your bed is the front-line dot. To lie down flat on your back, supine, would be the height of spiritual folly. It is a posture of complete surrender, of utter helplessness. You would be an open book, an undefended fortress, an open invitation to any wandering entity with ill intent. And you know precisely what kind of entities wander the night. You've heard the priest's sermons and the hushed, terrified stories whispered around the fire. You know about the incubus and the succubus. These are not mere fairy tales to you. They are a terrifying reality. These nocturnal demons, it is said, prey upon sleeping humans, seeking to corrupt them, steal their virtue, or even sire demonic offspring. The belief that these specific demons assaulted people in their sleep was a mainstream historical fact, discussed and catalogued by the most learned theologians of the age. This wasn't just folklore. It was doctrine. Your propped-up posture is your shield. It is a position of vigilance. By remaining partially upright, you are signaling to God and to the devil that you are not fully unconscious, not completely vulnerable. You are watchful, even in your sleep. It's a bit like being the soul's night watchman. You have to stay alert, even if you're technically off the clock and drooling on your pillow. Lying on your back, conversely, is seen as the posture most likely to attract these fiends. There is a specific, visceral fear associated with this. You've heard of people waking in the dead of night, paralyzed, unable to move or scream, with a crushing weight on their chest. They describe seeing a dark shape, a monstrous figure, sitting on them, stealing their breath. You know this phenomenon as the night mare. Not a bad dream, but a physical assault by a demon, a mare. We now understand this as sleep paralysis, a harmless physiological hiccup, but for you, it is proof positive of demonic attack. This quirky but deeply held belief provides a powerful, terrifying reason to avoid sleeping flat on your back at all costs. Why would you want to create the perfect landing strip for a chest-sitting demon? Historians still argue whether these potent spiritual fears were the primary driver for upright sleep, or if they were a religious justification layered on top of the more practical medical and environmental concerns. Did the fear of demons create the posture, or did the posture, adopted for other reasons, simply align perfectly with the existing spiritual anxieties of the time? For you, the reasons are all part of the same braided cord of terror. Lying flat is bad for your humors. It's cold, and it gets you spiritually compromised by the forces of darkness. It's a bad deal all around. Your pillow fortress is a defense against the damp, the mice, your own phlegm, and Satan himself. It's a very busy pile of pillows. And as you sit there, propped up and alert in your slumber, there is one more image you are desperate to avoid, an image that is both profoundly sad and deeply frightening. And as you sit there, propped up and alert in your slumber, there is one more image you are desperate to avoid, an image that is both profoundly sad and deeply frightening. It's the image of death itself. You have seen death up close, not in a distant, sterile hospital, but right here, in a room just like this one, in a bed just like yours. When your grandmother passed last winter, or when the neighbor's child was taken by a fever, they didn't disappear into an ambulance. They stayed home. And the bed, the center of domestic life, became the stage for their final act. You remember it clearly. The labored breathing, the gathering of family, and then the final quiet stillness. After death, the body was washed and prepared, and then it was laid out, flat on its back, supine, arms crossed over the chest or resting at the sides. This is the posture of the dead. It is the one final, unchanging position. To lie this way, while you are alive, while you are sleeping, feels like a terrible mimicry, a dress rehearsal for your own demise. You don't want to get in any practice reps for being a corpse. Sleep is already called death's little brother. You see no reason to encourage the family resemblance. This is more than just a vague superstition. It's a deep psychological barrier. The bed is where you were likely born, where you sleep, where you make love, and it is almost certainly where you will die. The line between these states of being is one you are careful not to blur. Lying flat is the ultimate symbol of passivity and finality. It signals that the fight is over. The humors have failed. The soul is departed. To adopt that pose willingly feels like tempting fate, like lying down in a coffin to see if it fits. It's a bit like refusing to try on a wedding dress before. You're engaged, just in case you jinx it. This association is reinforced by the immense cultural importance of the good death. Dying well is considered an art form, a final and most crucial test of a person's life and faith. A whole category of popular literature, known as the ars moriendi, or the art of dying, provides detailed instructions on how to face the end. These texts advise the dying person to remain conscious, to contemplate Christ's suffering, to confess their sins, and to resist the final temptations of the devil. This process happens in the bed, often while propped up to facilitate breathing and speaking. But once that final breath is taken, the transition is marked by laying the body flat, preparing it for its vigil. This vigil is a key part of the grieving process. For a day or even more, the body remains in the bed, and the room fills with neighbors and relatives coming to pay their respects and to pray for the departed soul. A quirky but common aspect of this is that the bed itself becomes a piece of funerary furniture. It is the literal deathbed, a term that carries a weight and immediacy you feel every single night. Historians still argue about the precise moment when the bed transitioned from a place of life to being so intimately associated with the final moments of sickness and death. But for you, that association is ironclad. You sleep in the same space where the dead are displayed. Why on earth would you choose to imitate them? Your upright posture is a declaration. It says, I am still among the living. My heart is still warm. My soul is still my own. It's an active living posture, a stark contrast to the cold, still, horizontal plane of the departed. And you are rarely the only living, breathing person making that declaration in this bed. This space isn't just for you, or even for the dying. Most nights, it's far more crowded than that. Most nights, it's far more crowded than that. You shift your weight, a small adjustment on your side of the bed, and the movement causes a cascade of rustles and groans, not just from the mattress, but from the other bodies sharing it with you. The concept of a private bedroom is a luxury you cannot even imagine. Your bed is the family bed, and on any given night, it is a tangle of limbs and shared warmth next to you. Propped up on her own pile of pillows is your spouse. You are close enough to feel the heat radiating from her body, a small human furnace against the chill of the room. You can hear her soft, rhythmic breathing, a familiar and comforting sound in the deep dark. Between you might be your youngest, Child, a small, warm lump curled up under the heavy wool, nestled in for protection and heat. It's a bit like a human-powered version of that hot stone you have at your feet, but this one occasionally kicks you in the ribs. Your other children might be sleeping in the same bed, arranged by age and size, or they might be in a smaller, secondary bed, a trundle that slides out from under the main one, or even just on a simple straw pallet on the floor nearby. Bed is a communal space, a puzzle of bodies that has to be assembled every night and disassembled every morning. This isn't just about saving space in your one-room home. It's a vital survival strategy. Remember that pervasive, bone-deep cold of the Little Ice Age? Huddling together is the most effective way to combat it. More bodies mean more body heat trapped under that single precious woolen blanket. It's a simple, biological truth that sharing a bed dramatically increases your chances of staying warm through a freezing night. It's the medieval equivalent of a group hug, but for 8 hours and with a lot more snoring. But it's not just your nuclear family. Depending on your household status, you might have other people in the room, or even in the bed. If you're a slightly more prosperous farmer or an artisan, you might have a servant or an apprentice. And where do they sleep? Not in a separate servant's quarters. They sleep right here, on a pallet at the foot of your bed, or if they are young, sometimes in the bed with the children. A mainstream historical fact of medieval life is that household staff were integrated directly into the family's living space. The lines between family and employee were incredibly blurry. This leads to some situations that seem utterly bizarre to a modern mind. A quirky but documented practice was that a visiting guest of similar social standing might be offered a place in the main bed with the husband and wife as a sign of honor and hospitality. It was a gesture of trust and intimacy, not the awkward social situation it would be today. Imagine checking into a hotel and the concierge says, "Excellent, sir. The Lord and Lady of the Manor have saved you a spot right between them." Historians still argue about the precise sleeping arrangements and how they varied by class and region. Did entire families always sleep in one bed, or was it more common for children to have separate, humbler sleeping spots? The evidence from wills, court records, and illustrations suggests a wide variety of practices. But the core reality remains. Sleep was a profoundly social, public affair. You know every lump in your mattress, and you also know the rhythm of your spouse's breathing, the sound of your child's sniffles, and the particular, room-shaking quality of your father-in-law's snore when he's staying over. As you lie there, propped up in your shared human nest, you are acutely aware of every little sound and movement. The night is a shared experience, and the idea of being alone in the dark is a strange and slightly unnerving one. The night is a shared experience, and the idea of being alone in the dark is a strange and slightly unnerving one. The very concept of privacy, as you might think of it today, simply does not exist. It's not just that you share a bed with your family. You share your entire life with them and with your neighbors in a way that is almost impossible for a modern mind to fully grasp. There are no doors to close. There is one room. This single space is where you are born, where you eat, where you argue, where you mend your tools, where you get sick, and where you die. All of life's dramas, big and small, play out on this one single stage, with a full cast of characters always present. As you lie there in the dark, propped against your bolster, you can hear everything. You hear your oldest son muttering in his sleep on the pallet near the fire. You hear the soft whimper of the baby beside you. You hear the faint but persistent scratching of your wife's fingernails against her arm, fighting her own nightly battle with the fleas. If you need to get up in the night, it's not a simple, private trip to a bathroom. You have to carefully extricate yourself from the tangle of limbs in the bed, trying not to wake anyone, and then feel your way in the dark to the chamber pot that sits in the corner of the room. Its use is a semi-public event, punctuated by the grunts and groans of your sleeping family. It's not exactly a spa-like experience. This lack of privacy extends beyond your own four walls. Those walls are thin. Your neighbor, sleeping just a few feet away in his own house, is probably fighting the same cold, sleeping in the same posture, and sharing his bed with his own family. You can likely hear his cough, the cry of his new baby, or the loud thud of his bedstone falling to the floor. Your lives are intertwined, your nightly soundtracks bleeding into one another. There are no secrets in the village. Everyone knows who is fighting with their spouse, whose child has a croupy cough, and who snores like a boar caught in a thicket. A quirky but illuminating example of this public intimacy is the wedding night. After a marriage ceremony, it was a common custom for the wedding guests to escort the newlyweds to their bedchamber. This wasn't a quick drop-off at the door. The priest might bless the bed, and the guests would engage in boisterous, bawdy joking, only leaving once the couple was actually tucked into bed together. The bedding ceremony was a public affirmation of the marriage's consummation, a community event marking the transition. Forget a romantic, private honeymoon. Your honeymoon begins with your entire social circle, a priest, and probably your new mother-in-law giving you a thumbs up. Historians still argue about the emotional and psychological impact of this pervasive lack of privacy. Did medieval people yearn for solitude, or was the concept so alien that they found comfort and security in the constant presence of others? Some scholars suggest that the modern idea of the self as a private, interior entity hadn't fully developed. Yet, your identity was more external, defined by your relationships, your role in the community, and your place in the household. Being alone wasn't peaceful. It was dangerous. It meant you were an outcast, without the protection of the group. From your perspective, propped up in the warm, breathing, snoring mass of your family, this constant presence is normal. It's the baseline of existence. The darkness beyond the walls of your home feels vast and threatening, and the huddle of humanity in this room is your fortress against it. You are a single, watchful node in a larger, sleeping organism, and your posture is just one part of the collective defense you all maintain through the long, dark hours. You are a single, watchful node in a larger, sleeping organism, and your posture is just one part of the collective defense you all maintain through the long, dark hours. As you sit there, surrounded by the warmth of your sleeping family, you become aware of the fabric against your skin. It's not soft. It's not designed for comfort. It's the same tunic you've been wearing all day. The concept of dedicated sleepwear pajamas, nightgowns, is a luxury far beyond your world. You simply don't own enough clothes for that. Your daily garment is a simple, long-sleeved tunic made of coarse wool or a rough linen wool blend known as linsey woolsey. It reaches down to your knees or calves, and it is the single most versatile piece of clothing you own. You work in it, you eat in it, and you sleep in it. Before getting into bed, your evening routine was minimal. You might have taken off the outermost, most soiled layer if you were wearing one, perhaps a dirty leather apron or a heavy cloak. You probably removed your shoes, if you own any. Most of the time, you likely work barefoot or in simple cloth wrappings. The tunic you have on now bears the stains, smells, and memories of the entire day. A bit of spilled stew, a smear of mud from the fields, the lingering scent of wood smoke, and the faint but unmistakable aroma of your own sweat. It's a walking, olfactory journal of your life. This is not to say you sleep in all your clothes. You do have a small concession to the night. It is your chemise or shirt, which you wear underneath the tunic. This is a simpler garment, usually made of a slightly finer, though still scratchy linen. This is your base layer, the one closest to your skin. The idea is that this undergarment will absorb most of the sweat and oils from your body, protecting. the more valuable and harder to clean outer tunic. At night, many people would simply remove their outer tunic and sleep just in this long linen shirt. It's the closest thing you have to a pair of pajamas. It's loose, breathable, and covers you from your neck to your knees. Your spouse is sleeping in a similar garment, a long linen smock. Now for a quirky but important detail. You almost certainly sleep wearing a hat, or, more accurately, a nightcap. This isn't a fashion statement. It's a piece of essential thermal gear. Remember that battle against the cold? You lose a tremendous amount of heat through your head. A simple linen or wool cap pulled down over your ears is crucial for staying warm. It also has a secondary, very practical purpose. It helps to keep the lice and other creepy crawlies from having an all-night party in your hair. It's a bit like putting a no vacancy sign on your scalp for any itinerant vermin. Everyone, men, women, and children, would have worn some form of head covering to bed. Historians still argue about the specifics of what common people wore to bed, as clothing was worn until it literally fell apart, leaving very little evidence for archaeologists to find. Most of our information comes from illustrations in manuscripts and from the wills of wealthier people who might list specific garments. It's generally agreed that for the vast majority of the population, sleeping naked was also a common option, especially for the very poor or during the hotter summer months. It saved on laundry, for one. For you tonight, in the damp chill, your linen shirt and woolen cap are a welcome barrier against the cold. You pull the scratchy wool blanket up. Higher, the rough texture of familiar friction against your chin. The clothes you wear to sleep are not about comfort or style. They are a tool, another layer in your nightly system of survival, just like the bolster at your back and the warm stone at your feet. And this system, in its basic principles, isn't just for you. Even the richest lord in the land is fighting the same battles, albeit with much fancier weapons. And this system, in its basic principles, isn't just for you. Even the richest lord in the land is fighting the same battles, albeit with much fancier weapons. Let's leave your smoky, crowded hut for a moment. Imagine you are now in the great stone castle that looms on the hill above your village. The air here is still cold stone walls, radiate a chill all their own, but it's a different kind of cold. It's the grand, echoing cold of a cavern, not the damp, earthy chill of a burrow. The air smells not of mud and cabbage, but of beeswax candles, wood smoke from a cavernous fireplace, and the faint, sweet scent of dried herbs strewn among the rushes on the floor. And there, in the center of the chamber, dominating the space, is the bed. It's less a piece of furniture and more a small, independent nation-state of comfort. This is the great bed of the lord and lady. The frame is a colossal structure of carved oak, its posts reaching towards the ceiling like the pillars of a cathedral. The wood is dark and polished, intricately carved with scenes of hunts, saints, or the family's coat of arms. This isn't just a place to sleep. It's the single most expensive and important object in the entire household, a potent symbol of wealth, status, and power. A mainstream historical fact is that in many noble wills, the great bed was the first and most significant item bequeathed, often passed down through generations like a crown jewel. But look closer. For all its grandeur, the fundamental architecture of sleep is exactly the same. At the head of this magnificent bed, against a carved headboard that's a work of art in itself, rests a massive bolster. It's still a long, firm cylinder, the foundation of the nightly fortress, but it's covered in fine, smooth linen instead of coarse canvas. On top of it is not just one or two lumpy pillows, but a whole mountain of them, a cascade of softness. These are stuffed not with straw or scratchy wool, but with the finest, softest goose down, each one encased in an embroidered pillow slip. The lord and lady sleep propped up on this luxurious ramp for the very same reasons you do. They believe in humoral theory just as fervently, and they fear a nocturnal deflection of phlegm or a sudden apoplectic stroke just as much. Their physician, a learned man who has actually read Galen in Latin, has impressed upon them the grave, dangers of lying flat. They fear the demonic night mare and the spiritual vulnerability of the supine position. And they, too, want to avoid imitating the posture of the dead. The core beliefs are identical. The only difference is the budget. Instead of a lumpy straw palliasse, their bed has a complex, multi-layered system. A base of taut rope supports, a mattress filled with wool flock, and on top of that is the ultimate luxury, a deep feather bed. Sinking into it isn't like lying on a bag of uncooked spaghetti. It's like sinking into a cloud made of money. Even here, in this opulent chamber, privacy is a fluid concept. A quirky but vital member of a high-ranking lord's household was the personal attendant who slept in the same room. For a king, this might be the famous groom of the stool, a high-status courtier. For your lord, it's a trusted valet who sleeps on a small truckle bed that rolls under the main bed during the day. He's there to fetch a drink of water, tend to the fire, or help his master with the chamber pot. He is the original smart home assistant, but with more feelings and a tendency to gossip. Historians still argue whether the great bedchamber of a lord was ever a truly private space. Many believe it functioned as a semi-public room where the lord and lady would receive important visitors, dictate letters, and conduct business from the comfort of their magnificent, propped-up bed. The bed wasn't just for sleeping. It was an office and a reception hall. And this magnificent structure often had one more feature, an addition that created a room within a room, offering a final, crucial layer of defense against the cold, dark night. And this magnificent structure often had one more feature, an addition that created a room within a room, offering a final, crucial layer of defense against the cold, dark night. From the four towering posts of the great bed hang immense, heavy curtains. They are not the light, airy drapes of a modern bedroom. These are monumental swaths of fabric, often made of thick wool baize, rich velvet, or even silk damask for the truly wealthy, and they are frequently lined with another layer of fabric for extra insulation. During the day, they are drawn back and tied to the bedposts, revealing the splendor of the bed. But at night, they are untied and pulled shut, completely enclosing the sleeping space on all four sides. When these curtains are drawn, the bed is transformed. It ceases to be just a bed and becomes a small, private, fabric-walled chamber. This is the canopy bed in its original, purely functional form. Its primary purpose is incredibly practical, to trap heat. Inside this curtained cocoon, the collective body heat of the lord, the lady, and anyone else fortunate enough to be in the bed is contained, creating a microenvironment that is significantly warmer than the vast, drafty stone chamber outside. It's the same principle as your shared family huddle, but executed with a theatrical, high-budget flair. You could be in the coldest castle in Scotland, but inside your velvet-lined bedbox, you are snug and warm. It's like a bespoke, hand-carved tent pitched in the middle of a private stone cave. The curtains also offer a defense against the other nocturnal nuisances you know so well. They are a formidable barrier against the drafts that snake their way across even the most well-appointed stone floors. They help to muffle sounds from the rest of the room, where the valet might be snoring on his truckle bed. And crucially, they offer a degree of protection from things falling from the ceiling. In a house like yours, that might be a bit of dirt or a sleepy mouse from the thatch. In a castle, it might be a drip of condensation, a flake of whitewash, or a spider making. A bold descent. The canopy topped the tester acts as a roof, keeping the sleepers safe and dried out, of course. This enclosure also provides a level of privacy that is utterly alien to your one-room existence. Inside the drawn curtains, the lord and his lady can be together without the prying eyes of the valet or any other attendants who might be in the room. This is one of the first glimmers of the modern concept of a private space for intimacy. A quirky but fascinating detail found in some noble household accounts is the purchase of small rings and rods for these bed curtains, indicating a system that was used nightly and was an essential part of the bed's function. It wasn't just decoration. It was equipment. Historians still argue about the evolution of the canopy bed. Was it born purely out of the practical need for warmth and privacy? Or was it also driven by a desire for status and display? The elaborate carvings and costly fabrics certainly suggest that showing off one's wealth was a major factor. The canopy bed was the ultimate status symbol, a clear declaration that you were not just a person who owned a bed, but a person who owned a whole private room just for sleeping, even if that room was portable and made of velvet dot, but for all the luxury, the feather beds, the silk hangings, the carved posts, the core posture remains. The lord and lady are still propped up on their mountain of down pillows, their heads high, their bodies arranged to placate their humors and ward off the dark. Their magnificent fabric box is a warmer, more beautiful version of the same defense you maintain in your humble corner. The night is the great equalizer. Whether you are a peasant or a prince, you must face it in the same state of vigilant, upright slumber. And for both of you, the night will eventually end, not with a gentle alarm, but with a sudden, noisy intrusion from the outside world. And for both of you, the night will eventually end, not with a gentle alarm, but with a sudden, noisy intrusion from the outside world. The intrusion comes first as a sound, a frantic, tearing shriek that cuts through the pre-dawn gloom. It's the rooster in your neighbor's yard, greeting the first hint of light with a level of existential fury that makes your gentle iPhone alarm sound like a lullaby. This is not a quaint, pastoral cock-a-doodle-doo. It's a ragged, desperate scream that says, the darkness is ending, and another day of toil is upon us all. Before you can even curse the bird, a second, more profound sound rolls across the landscape. It's the deep, resonant tolling of a bell from the village church. Bong dot dot dot, bong dot dot dot, bong dot dot. This is the matins bell, the first of the canonical hours, a call for the local priest and any devout parishioners to begin their first prayers of the day. For you, it is the official, non-negotiable starting gun. The rooster may be the herald, but the bell is the command. There is no snooze button. The rooster does not have a 9-minute timer, and the church bell will not be ignored. The day has begun. You groan, not just from sleepiness, but from the immediate, shocking realization of the cold. The shared warmth of your family huddle under. The woolen blanket has created a precious bubble of comfort, and leaving it feels like plunging into an icy lake. You slowly, stiffly, push yourself more upright and swing your legs over the side of the bed. The moment your bare feet touch the packed dirt floor, a jolt of raw cold shoots up your legs. You sit there for a moment on the edge of the bed, a hunched figure in a long linen shirt and a slightly crooked nightcap, letting your eyes adjust to the dim, gray light filtering through the shutter. This moment of waking, however, might not be your first. Many people in your time experience what historians now call segmented sleep. It's a quirky but widespread pattern where you might sleep for a few hours after dusk, your first sleep, and then wake up naturally sometime after midnight. This waking period, lasting for an hour or so, is a quiet, contemplative time. You might stay in bed and talk softly with your spouse. You might say a few prayers, think about your dreams, or even get up to do a small, quiet chore by the faint glow of the banked fire. Then you would go back to bed for your second sleep, which lasts until the rooster's and bells of dawn. Historians still argue about how widespread this practice of segmented sleep truly was across different social classes and regions. But for many, the night is not a solid block of unconsciousness, but two distinct chapters with a quiet interlude. Whether it's your first or second waking, the morning routine is brutally efficient. You shuffle over to the chamber pot in the corner, a task made infinitely more grim by the shared space and the lingering chill. There's no morning shower. You might go to a wooden basin near the door and splash your face with a handful of frigid, murky water that was fetched from the well yesterday. Your morning breath could likely peel the waddle from the daub, but dental hygiene is a concept for another time. You pull on your rough outer tunic, which still holds the faint, damp chill of the night air. Breakfast is not a guaranteed affair. The very word means to break your fast from the night, but for you, it's not a leisurely meal. You might grab a chunk of hard, dark rye bread and a small cup of small ale a week, low-alcohol beer that is often safer to drink than the local water. Or you might have nothing at all, saving your appetite for a larger meal later in the day after several hours of hard labor. The day is defined by work, and the work is defined by light. As you step out of your door into the cold, misty dawn, the sun is just a faint promise on the horizon. The fields await. This rhythm of life, dictated by bells and sunlight, feels eternal, unchangeable. But nothing, not even the way you sleep, lasts forever. But nothing, not even the way you sleep, lasts forever. Let the centuries blur for a moment. Imagine your wattle and daub hut crumbling back into the earth, the great stone castle on the hill becoming a romantic, ivy-choked ruin. New town spring. Up, paved with cobblestones instead of mud. The world grows louder, more complex, more connected. Now, let's fast forward. It's no longer 1350. The year is now 1750. You are still you, but a different you, perhaps a prosperous merchant living in a bustling town. And tonight, as you prepare for bed, the world and your bedroom are profoundly different. You are not in a single smoky room. You are in a house with multiple floors and, crucially, multiple rooms. Your bedroom is a dedicated space, just for sleeping. It has a proper wooden floor, maybe even a fine rug beside the bed. And against one wall is a revolutionary piece of technology that has changed everything. A fireplace with a working chimney. The smoke from the gently crackling fire is not filling the room, trying to give you a free lesson in amateur food preservation. It's being drawn neatly up and away, leaving behind only a pleasant, radiating warmth. The air in the room is dry and comfortable. The windows are no longer waxed linen, but actual panes of glass, keeping the drafts at bay. The war against the cold has, for the most part, been won. Your bed is still a grand affair, perhaps with 4 posts and curtains, but its function is shifting from a survival necessity to a statement of comfort and style. As you approach it, you notice the pillows. There are still several of them, but they are soft, plump, and arranged in a casual, inviting pile. They are for luxury, not for structural engineering. You no longer need to build a nightly rampart to escape the cold air pooling on the floor. The warm air from the fireplace circulates gently, making the space from floor to ceiling a zone of comfort. The medical landscape has changed, too. Learned men have been making discoveries that are slowly, painstakingly, chipping away at the foundations of humoral theory. A century ago, an English physician named William Harvey demonstrated that blood circulates in a closed loop, pumped by the heart. This idea, a mainstream historical fact that kick-started modern physiology, began a long revolution in medicine. Your own physician talks less about balancing your humors and more about nerves, vapors, and the importance of fresh air, though not too fresh. The terrifying specter of phlegm flooding your lungs if you lie flat is beginning to fade, replaced by new theories and new anxieties. A quirky holdover from the old fears is a persistent terror of night air. While your room is warm, you make sure the windows are sealed tight. The belief that the night air itself is a poisonous miasma, full of dangerous vapors that cause disease, is still very powerful. So while you are no longer cold, you are still sealed in, breathing the same air all night, convinced it's safer than the mysterious atmosphere outside. It's a bit like being worried about sharks in a swimming pool. The original threat is gone, but the fear remains. And so the great moment arrives. You pull back the cover's fine linen sheets and a thick, soft quilt. You get into bed, and you lie down, all the way down. Your head rests gently on a single, soft pillow. Your body is horizontal, your legs stretched out on the same plane as your chest and head. For a brief second, a ghost of an old instinct might flicker, a feeling that this is wrong. This is the posture of the dead. But it's quickly replaced by a profound sense of comfort. Historians still argue about how quickly this transition happened. Was it a rapid change in the 18th century, driven by these new comforts and sciences in the cities, or was it a much slower, more gradual process, with people in rural areas continuing to sleep propped up for another 100 years? The change wasn't a single event, but a slow, uneven tide. But for you, this new you, in your warm private room, the shift is complete. The old reasons, the cold, the humors, the vermin, the demons, have begun to recede into the realm of folklore. And a new posture, one of deep horizontal comfort, is taking its place. The old reasons, the cold, the humors, the vermin, the demons have begun to recede into the realm of folklore. And a new posture, one of deep horizontal comfort, is taking its place. But progress is a messy, uneven thing. As you lie there, flat on your back in your comfortable 18th century bed, a few of the old ghosts still linger. You feel safe from the cold, but you still feel a prickle of anxiety about the open window. That lingering fear of night air, the miasma, stubbornly remains, a hand-me-down terror from a time before chimneys and glazed windows. The old certainties of humoralism are dying, but the new certainties of science have not yet fully taken their place. You are living in the quiet, drafty hallway between two belief systems. Let's let the years slide forward again, just a little further. Now you are in the 19th century. The world is lit by gaslight, and the air hums with the sound of steam engines. And in your hands, you hold magazines and newspapers that bring news of astonishing discoveries. The most powerful of these comes from men peering through polished lenses into a world previously invisible. They see, in a single drop of pond water, a bustling, swarming city of tiny animalcules. This discovery is a profound shock to the system. The idea that the world is teeming with invisible life is both wondrous and deeply unsettling. Then, men, like Louis Pasteur in France and Robert Koch in Germany, take this discovery and forge it into a weapon. They demonstrate, with irrefutable proof, that it is not a vague, foul-smelling miasma that causes cholera or a humoral imbalance that causes infection. It is these tiny living creatures, germs, microbes. This is the moment the world truly changes. The old fears don't just fade away. They are systematically hunted down and killed by the scientific method. The mainstream historical fact of germ theory is the single gunshot that echoes through the 19th century, signaling the definitive end of 1,000 years of medical belief. It's not the bad smell of the swamp that makes you sick. It's the invisible organisms in the swamp's water. The demon isn't in the air. It's on your unwashed hands. This new knowledge slowly dismantles the remaining scaffolding that held up the practice of upright sleep. The fear of phlegm pooling in your chest seems absurd when you understand that your lungs are not a simple JUG that can be overfilled. The terror of a sudden apoplectic stroke caused by humors rushing to your head is replaced by a new, more clinical understanding of blood pressure and aneurysms. The demons of the night, the incubus, and the night mare retreat from the bedroom and take up residence in the pages of Gothic novels, transformed from genuine threats into thrilling fictions. As science provides new reasons to feel safe lying down, technology provides new ways to be comfortable doing it. A quirky but revolutionary invention comes in the 1870s, the coiled spring mattress. For the first time in human history, a bed can offer yielding, uniform support. It's not a lumpy bag of straw, feathers, or wool that you sink into, creating a valley. It's a responsive surface that cradles your body. Suddenly, lying flat is not just medically sound. It's gloriously, fantastically comfortable. It's the final, luxurious nail in the coffin of propped-up sleeping. Why would you ever sit up on a pile of pillows when you could float horizontally on a cloud of steel springs? Historians still debate how long it took for these new scientific ideas to trickle down from the educated elite to the general populace. While scientists were isolating microbes in their labs, your own great-grandmother might still have been telling you to seal the windows against the night air and put a poultice on your chest to draw out a fever. The transition was slow, filled with a muddle of old folk wisdom and new scientific jargon. But eventually, inevitably, the new logic wins. The fear of germs leads to public sanitation, clean water, and personal hygiene, and sickness plummets. The victory is so complete that within a few generations, the memory of why people ever slept sitting up is almost entirely forgotten, becoming a strange historical curiosity rather than a lived reality. But the victory is so complete that within a few generations, the memory of why people ever slept sitting up is almost entirely forgotten, becoming a strange historical curiosity rather than a lived reality. You now lie in your own bed, in the profound horizontal comfort that your ancestors could never have imagined. The idea of sleeping propped up on a pile of rough bolsters seems utterly alien, a bizarre historical footnote. And yet, the ghosts of that upright posture are still here, hiding in plain sight, echoing in the furniture, habits, and even the medical advice of your modern world. Look at your own bed, or picture the beds you see in magazines and showrooms. What do they all have in common? A mountain of pillows. Not just the two you actually use, but a whole host of decorative ones. Square ones, round ones, little rectangular ones. Pillows that have one job: to be thrown on the floor before you actually sleep. We instinctively build a lavish, multi-layered pillow fortress at the head of our beds, a propped-up display of comfort that serves no practical purpose whatsoever. It's a vestigial habit, a faint cultural memory. We've forgotten why the pillows were once stacked so high, but we still like the way it looks. We still build the throne, even though we no longer sit on it to sleep. The echoes are loudest. In the realm of medicine, while humoral theory is long dead, modern science has, in a strange twist, rediscovered the benefits of your ancestors' posture for specific conditions. If you suffer from acid reflux or GERD, what does your doctor tell you to do? Elevate the head of your bed. Let gravity help keep your stomach acids where they belong. If a person has congestive heart failure or certain respiratory illnesses like COPD, they often find it much easier to breathe when propped up. This is why the modern hospital bed is a direct technological descendant of the medieval bolster and pillow. Pile, the ability to raise the head of the bed, putting the patient in a semi-upright position, is a mainstream and critical feature for patient comfort and recovery. We arrived at the same solution, but our reasoning is based on fluid dynamics and pulmonary pressure, not on the fear of runaway phlegm. And for a truly quirky modern parallel, you can find a whole community of people online who practice something called incline bed therapy. They intentionally prop the head of their entire bed frame up on blocks, usually by about 6 inches, to create a permanent, gentle slope. The proponents of this practice claim it offers a huge range of health benefits, from improving circulation and reducing inflammation to enhancing brain detoxification during sleep. Much of their reasoning, focused on gravity and fluid flow, ends up sounding suspiciously like a humoral theory reboot with better marketing. It's a fascinating example of people independently rediscovering the posture of their distant ancestors, driven by a similar, intuitive belief that lying perfectly flat might not be the optimal position after all. Even our leisure time is filled with upright slumber. Think of the modern throne for dad naps, the glorious lazy-boy. The recliner chair is a piece of furniture designed to perfectly recreate that 45-degree, propped-up posture, the ideal position for dozing off in front of the television. Sleep experts and historians still debate the long-term effects of our modern sleeping habits. Is our obsession with ever-softer sinking mattresses actually good for us, or does it contribute to the chronic back pain that afflicts so many? Some advocate for a return to firmer, flatter surfaces, more akin to what our bodies evolved with. The perfect night's sleep, it turns out, is not a settled science. The conversation your ancestors had about the best way to arrange their bodies. For the night continues, now armed with new words like spinal alignment and pressure relief, but it's the same fundamental search for health and comfort. So as you lie there, flat and comfortable, know that you are at one end of a long, strange history. And that ancient, upright posture isn't entirely gone. It's just sleeping, waiting in the design of your hospital beds, in your doctor's advice, and in that unnecessary but beautiful pile of pillows at your head. That ancient, upright posture isn't entirely gone. It's just sleeping, waiting in the design of your hospital beds, in your doctor's advice, and in that unnecessary but beautiful pile of pillows at your head. Those decorative pillows that you probably tossed on the floor a little while ago. The ones that don't seem to do anything but look pretty and take up space. They are the last faint echoes of a time when a pillow wasn't a luxury, but a load-bearing wall against the terrors of the night. They are the silent, fluffy ghosts of a vanquished world. But now, just feel where you are. Feel the surface beneath you. It is not a sagging net of ropes. It is not a lumpy, rustling bag of dusty straw and anti-flay herbs. It is a miracle of engineering. Whether it's memory foam, latex, or a complex system of springs, it yields and supports you in ways your 14th century self would find baffling and probably demonic. The pocket spring mattress, a mainstream invention perfected around the year 1900, created a system where each spring responds independently. This means the surface conforms to your body, rather than your body being forced to conform to it. You are not perched on a slope. You are floating on a calm, quiet sea. Feel the sheets against your skin. They are not the coarse, scratchy wool of a single greasy blanket, nor the rough homespun linen of a peasant's shirt. They are soft, smooth, and clean. You can stretch out your legs, and they don't bump into a sibling, a spouse, or a random house guest who has offered a spot as a sign of honor. Your only bedfellows are the ones you choose. Your feet don't have to search for a warm stone. They are already tucked into a pocket of consistent, reliable warmth provided by a duvet engineered with the kind of thermal efficiency that would have seemed like black magic. Breathe in. The air is clean and the temperature is controlled. You do not smell smoke, damp earth, or unwashed bodies. You are not propped up to escape a miasma of cold air on the floor, and you are not worried about your humors going on a midnight joyride through your chest. The only demon you might have to contend with is the one that reminds you to check your phone one last time. A quirky tidbit from the dawn of modern bedding is that when germ theory took hold, mattress advertisements of the late 19th century relentlessly focused on hygiene, boasting of sanitary fillings and germ-proof construction, swapping the old fear of spirits for a new, microscopic terror. Psychologists and anthropologists still debate whether the profound solitude of modern sleep, the dark, silent, temperature-controlled box we seal ourselves in, is truly what our social species is adapted for, or if it contributes to some of our modern anxieties. But for tonight, there is no debate. There is only comfort. The journey we've been on tonight, back to that cold, crowded, upright world, was just a story. The fears of your ancestors are not your own. You have won the war they were fighting. You have won it so completely that you never even knew you were enlisted. Your bed is not a fortress against the night. It is a sanctuary. It is a reward. It is the culmination of centuries of striving, discovery, and the simple, universal human quest for a safe, comfortable place to rest. And as you settle deeper into this modern miracle of a bed, allow yourself to truly appreciate it. The quiet, the warmth, the softness, the profound, glorious horizontal peace of it all. The long night of history is over, and you can finally let the story fade, like the last glow of a banked fire in a small, distant hut. Let the memory of the cold and the damp dissolve into the gentle warmth that surrounds you now, a warmth they could only dream of. Feel the steady, easy weight of your own blanket, a soft anchor in a calm harbor. The journey is done. You are safe. You are comfortable. There is nothing left to do but to let go. Allow your breathing to slow, to deepen, to find its own quiet, sleeping rhythm. Let your mind drift away from the past and settle into the soft, peaceful present. Ease into the stillness. Ease into the quiet. Ease into your own well-earned rest.